Hello everyone, welcome to Advanced Knowledge Systems and a warm welcome to AKS IAS Academy, and it offers examination coaching for UPSC, CSC, State Public Service Commission, SSC Combined Graduate Level and CLAT examinations. And about me, and Sandeep Bhushan Tumala, and I take up the analysis of the Hindu newspaper, that is of today's 26th April 2021. And throughout my session, I would be emphasizing on the keywords and the key phrases from the Hindu newspaper, wherein we will try to identify the factual, analytical and conceptual questions which will be critical for prelims of UPSC perspective. And while you imbibe the keywords and the key phrases in your mains answer writing, your answers for the mains examination would be precise and concise, and thereby you would score higher marks in the mains examination. So this session at AKS IAS Academy Daily News Analysis will certainly help you to crack both the prelims as well as mains of 2021. And before we get into the DNA of the newspaper, we would be focusing at the quote of the day, and the quote of the day says that be strong when you're weak, be brave when you're scared, be humble when you are victorious. So we need to know what we need to follow at which point of life in our entire preparation. So be strong when you're weak, be brave when you're scared, and be humble when you're victorious. And now we'll get into the news, the analysis of the newspaper. And here it is in regards to the vaccine. The government or the center has come up saying that all the citizens at the age group of 18 to 44 years will have to register for administering the vaccine, that is with a portal called as CoWIN portal. So this is a keyword what we need to focus, is that the portal which the center is asking all the citizens who are in the age group of 18 to 44 years to be administered the vaccine should be registered on the CoWIN portal, and whoever is eligible between 18 to 44 years of age will be administered only at private facilities on payment. So this is the another point which the center has also put forth, that while you want to be administered between the age of 18 to 44 years, you need to register on the CoWIN portal. And not only that, you need to get, or when you are eligible to receive the vaccine, the vaccine for the age group of 18 to 44 years will be provided only at private facilities on demand, that is through payment. And only in few cases, when or where the states have decided to lower the minimum cutoff age which the center has put forth is 18 to 44 years. And if the states have decided to lower the minimum cutoff of age for the eligibility of the free vaccination, then it is up to the states to take a call. But as per the center has taken a decision that the citizens at the age group of 18 to 44 years have to register to get vaccinated or to administer the vaccine. CoWIN portal, they have to register and they have to go ahead with receiving the vaccine only at the private facilities on payment. And the center has also said that because now there would be a huge eligible beneficiaries, wherein the center has now agreed to go ahead with vaccinating at the age of 18 to 44 years, so there would be significantly enhanced beneficiaries, and this will result in regards to the overcrowding and law and order situations. So to avoid any kind of overcrowding and any kind of consequent law and order situation, the center has said that suitable arrangement must be made so that the eligible beneficiaries should be administered vaccine, and the vaccination would remain available first and foremost is to the frontline workers and to the citizens above the age of 45. Please do understand, above the age of 45 at government centers. And this to the frontline workers and to the citizens above 45 would be provided at the government centers free of cost, because this would be provided from the center's quota of 50% of vaccine, which the manufacturers would be provided to that is the pharmaceutical manufacturers would be provided 50% of the manufactured vaccine to the centers, and from the center's quota of 50% of vaccine, the vaccination would be available for the frontline workers and to the citizens above 45 years at government centers free of cost. But when it is in regards to the citizens at the age of 18 to 44 years, it would be that they would get it at the private facilities on payment. This is the difference. Please do understand. Above 45 years, and between 18 to 44 years. So between 18 to 44 years, the frontline workers, and above the age of 45 years would be at the government centers, and this is at free. And from 18 to 44, it is at the private facilities, and this would be on the demand, that is on payment. So this is the differentiation. We need to understand what the center has come forward in regards to the administering of the vaccine or inoculating the vaccine to the citizens at the age of 18 to 44 years. And now we'll look at, because the SARS-CoV-2 has created a kind of pandemic situation across the globe, and now India is experiencing a worse situation because of the surge of the second wave in India across many states, almost 10 to 12 states, which is now we are finding it very difficult in regards to the raw material or in regards to the vaccination, remdesivir, and also in regards to the oxygen supply. So in this scenario, now there was a discussion, or there was a meeting between the National Security Advisor between India and US, that is between Ajit Doval and Jake Sullivan. And then they have also taken a decision after the meeting that there would be an immediately deployment of supplies and other assistance to India. So this is the major outcome of the meeting between the National Security Advisors of India and US. And in turn, now US assistance, which has agreed to deploy supplies and other assistance to India, would include raw material, and the raw material which would be used for the COVID-19 vaccine, that is Covishield. And the US assistance will also include options to generate oxygen. And these are the two which the US or both the national security advisors have taken into consideration, that they would be immediately deploying supplies and other assistance to India, especially in regards to the raw materials for the COVID-19 vaccine, that is Covishield, and the options to generate oxygen, because there is lack of supply of oxygen in many of the states in India. So the US has come forward in regards to having an options to generate oxygen on an urgent basis. So this is the outcome of the meeting between the two national security advisors, that is Ajit Doval and Jake Sullivan. And United States have identified that it will go ahead with the supplying of the raw materials, and these supplies would be in regards to the therapeutics, and in regards to the rapid diagnostic test kits, supplies in regards to the ventilators, supplies in regards to the personal protective equipment, that is PPE. And all these which have been identified by the United States will be immediately made available for India at a very warlike situation, because it is a national emergency which has created because of the COVID-19 second wave in India. And United States have identified the supplies of therapeutics, rapid diagnostic test kits, ventilators, and PPEs, which will be made available for India. And United States also, along with the raw material for the Covishield and along with the supplies of, as we have discussed, the therapeutics, rapid test kits, ventilators, PPE, USA is also now pursuing options to provide oxygen generation and also related supplies of oxygen on an urgent basis. And these in regards to the providing raw materials and also supplies, and also provide oxygen generation to India, which will be made available for India in this scenario, which the two national security advisors have discussed, and then they have gone ahead with deploying the supplies immediately to India, is now the one which would come into the action is the US Defense Production Act. So this is the key phrase. Why we need to focus, or why you as a civil servant aspirant has to focus in this analysis, that US has come forward to go ahead with immediately deploying the raw material to India, which would be made available in a very urgent basis in this scenario, which will come into the action, is this act. So which act is the one which would provide emergency powers to the, or which would allow the US government to control the private sector production decision, is the US Defense Production Act. So now the US Defense Production Act and the federal government purchase orders have been prioritized when both the national security advisors had a meeting and they have decided to deploy immediately the raw materials to be made available to India. So please do understand, this is the key phrase or the act which is now into the mode to control the private sector production decisions by the US is the US Defense Production Act. This is crucial information. And the federal government purchase orders, which both have taken into consideration that it will prioritize the decision taken over the foreign orders. And the DFC, that is the US Development Finance Corporation, has also come forward to expand financing for the Biological E Limited, which is an Hyderabad based firm, so that the Biological E Limited firm will ramp up production with the expanding financing or the finance which has been expanded by the US Development Finance Corporation. So here the key phrase which has to be taken into consideration, because this is the one which has financed, which is financing the Biological E Limited and a Hyderabad based pharmaceutical firm to ramp up the production, so that the ramping up the production would meet the requirement of the vaccine supply program. And this vaccine supply program is being rolled out by the Quad, that is quadrilateral, wherein we have US, and then we have India, Japan and Australia, which are the 4 countries which are part of the quadrilateral. And on the sidelines of the Quad, the 4 countries have decided to go ahead with the ramping of production in regards to the vaccine supply program which was rolled at Quad. So this is the key phrase, that is vaccine supply program which has been rolled out at the Quad is very crucial for the understanding that how US has come forward in regards to financing the Biological E Limited, which is a pharmaceutical Hyderabad based firm, in ramping up the production is from the quadrilateral. Please do understand the importance of quadrilateral, how India has got, or the Biological E Pharmaceutical Company, a firm, has got the financing which has been expanded by the US Development Finance Corporation is mainly because of the quadrilateral or the Quad. And apart from this, the United States has now deployed the expert teams of public health advisors, which are part of the Center for Disease Control and which are part of the USAID, that is United States Agency for International Development. So the United States have deployed the expert teams of public health advisors from CDC and USAID. Why it has deployed is to work in close collaborations with US Embassy, to work close with India's health ministries, and to work closely with India's epidemic intelligence service staff. So you have a service staff which is India's epidemic intelligence service staff. So this is again another key phrase which we need to focus, is that the United States has not only just come forward in regards to deploying the raw material for the Covishield, but also in regards to providing an additional supplies to the therapeutics, test kits, ventilators, PPEs, and also providing oxygen generation. And not only that, they have also come up with deploying an expert team of public health advisors which are from the CDC and USAID, so that they will work in collaboration with US Embassy, India's health ministries, and India's epidemic intelligence service staff. So this information what is being discussed now is very crucial for prelims as well as mains examination, because the way the United States has come forward in acting very swiftly in regards to the requirement, which is the raw material needed for the Covishield manufacturing, is because of the Quad. Main is Quad, and with the Quad, what are the other agencies or institutions which are part of the providing providing assistance, financial assistance to India, or the or Hyderabad-based pharmaceutical company is US Development Finance Corporation, and then CDC, that is Center for Disease Control, and USAID, that is United States Agency for International Development. And the other one which we should not forget is the act which is now brought in to prioritize over the foreign orders to India by the US is the US Defense Production Act. So these are the keywords which you need to focus, that how the raw materials for the Covishield and the oxygen generation would be provided to meet the urgent need which is now causing a concern in India during the second wave across the country. And USAID will quickly work with the CDC. So what is the importance of USAID and CDC is that the United States Agency for International Development will work quickly with the Center for Disease Control so that it would support and fast track the mobilization of emergency resources to India, and that will happen through the Global Fund. So these are the keywords which are surely critical for UPSC prelims and also mains perspective. And now we'll focus, and this is in regards to the India-US bilateral relations, how US has come forward in regards to the providing the vaccine raw materials to India in regards to the manufacturing of the Covishield, COVID-19 vaccine Covishield. And apart from US, it is Russia which has also come forward to support India during the surge, which is at an exponential rate, which is in the second wave across India. And now Russia has also planned to fly special plans to India, or special planes to India. And this special planes to India would be in regards to providing the COVID related assistance, and this COVID related assistance would include oxygen generators, concentrators, medicines, and the drugs such as Flavipiravir. So these are the one which will be part of the special planes which would be flown from Russia to India. And when we are focusing at the drugs such as Flavipiravir, this will be used to treat milder versions of COVID-19 which is prevalent in India. And in regards to the exports of Remdesivir, such as the Russian government had earlier offered to facilitate to India, but now it is not clear that it will export to India because it has run into trouble with the Californian-based Gilead Sciences Incorporation. And this is the one which has developed the drug. And now the Gilead Sciences have come forward in invoking the US licensing laws, which will stop Russia in exporting the Remdesivir to India at the time of India wanting, or India is having shortage of COVID-19 or Remdesivir. And Gilead has signed a non-exclusive volunteering licensing agreement with 10 manufacturing companies which are based in India, Egypt and Pakistan. And these are for the Remdesivir production. So we are focusing at the Gilead, the one which is the sciences or the company which has had an voluntary licensing agreement. So here the keyword is Gilead Sciences, which is a California based, had an voluntary licensing agreement with 10 manufacturing companies which are based in India, Egypt and Pakistan for Remdesivir productions. And out of the 10, 7 are Indian companies and none are the Russian companies. That is why when the Gilead Sciences Incorporation, which is a California based, has got into, or it has invoked the US licensing laws for the Russian government, which now the Russian government earlier had offered an exports of remdesivir. Now it cannot, because it is a California based Gilead Sciences, and the Gilead Sciences Incorporation, which is a California based company, pharmaceutical company, had signed a non-exclusive voluntary licensing agreements, but none of the manufacturing companies are Russian manufacturing companies. That is why Russia cannot take its own stand of exporting the remdesivir to India. And the remdesivir, which was cleared for COVID-19 treatment by the US Food and Drug Administration in the month of October 2020. So remdesivir was cleared by it is produced by the California Gilead Sciences, but the manufacturing of the remdesivir is cleared by the US Food and Drug Administration, US FDA, in October 2020. And now if you look at, because there is none with Russia, that is in regards to the Gilead Sciences Incorporation has signed with Russia. So now remdesivir is being made in Russia after the Russian government had decided to defy the international patent. So who has the patent for remdesivir? It is Gilead Sciences Incorporation. But the Russian government has challenged or disobeyed the international patent of remdesivir by the Gilead Sciences, and in turn the Russian government has issued an ordinance which allows the Russian companies, that is Pharma Synthesis, to manufacture the drug under a compulsory license. So which company, that is a Russian company, has got the compulsory license to go ahead with manufacturing the remdesivir? It is Pharma Synthesis. So you have the Gilead Incorporation Sciences, which is of US, and now the Pharma Synthesis, which is of Russian, which the Russian government has challenged or disobeyed the international patent which is held by Gilead, and now the Russian government has issued an ordinance so that the pharmaceutical or Russian pharmaceutical company Pharma Synthesis will go ahead with manufacturing the drug. And now there is a point which we need to focus, that how India is wanting, or it is in running short of remdesivir. US, that is Gilead Incorporation of Sciences, has gone ahead with having its 10 manufacturing based, which are voluntary licensing agreements across India, Egypt and Pakistan. And in turn now Russia has gone ahead with issuing an ordinance for the Russian company Pharma Synthesis to produce or to manufacture the remdesivir. But if you look at the other side of it, the World Health Organization it is against the use of remdesivir, but instead there is a demand for the drug of remdesivir worldwide, despite the recommendations by the World Health Organization against the usage of remdesivir because of its adverse. But still, countries like US and Russia are also going ahead with manufacturing, and in turn India is also administering this remdesivir to go ahead with solving or having the spread of virus SARS-CoV-2 to contain. And along with the remdesivir, we have also focused another drug is favipiravir. So these are the two which you need to focus, which are crucial for the mild, and then in regards to the one which would be in a position to stop the spread of the virulent virus which is spreading in exponential form in India during the second surge across many states in India. And this is again in regards to the India and Russia bilateral relations, how Russia is planning to fly special planes to India. And we'll look at the another issue which is having a kind of the Yemen rebels which are causing concern to the Yemen government. So the Yemen rebels are the Houthis. This is a keyword. So who are the rebels to the Yemen government? The Yemen rebels. So who are the Yemen rebels? They are the Houthis. They called as Houthis. And these Houthis are backed by Iran. Houthi rebels are backed by Iran. And if you look at the news or the analysis which would be taking up is that the rebels have now had gains in the battle for the Marib city. So this Marib city is the northern stronghold of the government, that is Yemen government. But now Houthi rebels are trying to have their important gains and wanting to advance close to the center of the city, that is Marib city. So this is the keyword which we need to focus, that the Houthi rebels which are trying to gain an important gains into the battle of the Yemen with the Yemen government and advancing close to the center of the Marib city. And the Houthi rebels have taken the full control of the northwest Kasara battlefield. So while they are trying to advance close to the Marib city, which is a northern stronghold of the Yemen government, in the process, the rebels have taken full control of the Kasara battlefield and they are making progress onto the western front lines. Despite the Yemen government having 8 strikes or going ahead with the 8 strikes onto the Houthi rebels, and this Yemen government or the Yemen military is supported or backed by Saudi Arabia. So what we need to focus here is that for the analysis point of view, the rebels in Yemen, that is Houthis, are supported by Iran, and the Yemen government is backed or supported by Saudi Arabia. So this is the understanding which we need to focus, that who is supporting whom, and in turn who is trying to have gains into the northern stronghold of Marib city and having progress onto the western front lines and also having full control of the northwest Kasara battlefield. So these are the important points which you need to understand, is that the rebels and the Yemen government, and the rebels are supported by Iran and the Yemen government is backed by Saudi-led coalition. And the Houthis, they have taken control, as I said, on the Kasara battlefield or the Kasara front, and they are moved, that is taking advance, they are progressing toward the Al-Mil area, and this Al-Mil area is just 6 kilometers away from the Marib city. So we are constantly talking about Marib city, so we should also focus about what is the importance of Marib city, that the Houthi rebels, in spite of Yemen government which is backed by Saudi-led coalition, is going ahead with the 8 strikes onto the Houthi rebels, but still they are marching and progressing towards the Marib city, and they have almost moved to Al-Mil area, which is 6 kilometers away from the Marib city. And there is a concern now to the Houthi rebels, and which is a blessing to the Yemen government, because there are geographically mountains around the Al-Mil area, and this mountains would be acting as a formidable barrier to the Houthi rebels to move as soon as possible to the center of Marib city. And the Houthi rebels have been trying to acquire or trying to get close to the Marib city or to have the control over the Marib city since February. So look at the way the Houthi rebels are very much intended to take over or to have control over Marib city. And now we will focus at why the Houthi rebels are focused at the Marib city because Marib and surrounding areas are with oil fields, and this is strategically or geopolitically very much required for the Houthis to take control over the Marib city because Marib area or the Marib province is with oil fields, and this Marib will be the last significant pocket of the government held territory because we have seen earlier also the capital of Yemen, that is Sana'a, which has lost or now it is under the control of the Houthi rebels. So after Sana'a, now it is the turn for the Houthis to take control of Marib because Marib city is rich in oil fields. They have enormous oil fields, and once these oil fields or the Marib province, which is surrounded by oil fields, if it is in the hands of the Houthi rebels, then the Houthi rebels would also extend their area, occupying the Yemen government's provinces, which it has also earlier captured the capital city of Yemen, that is Sana'a. Not only that, it will also be financially strong. That is, Houthi rebels will be financially strong. We have seen that in the past, the way the ISIS, that is Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, have taken over the oil fields in Iraq and Syria. Because the ISIS have become then, right from 2014 onwards, gradually as they have taken over the control of the oil fields in Iraq and Syria, that is ISIS taking control over the oil fields in Iraq and Syria, they have become financially very strong so that they can go ahead with purchasing arms and also they can go ahead with recruiting. And it would be a death knell to the Yemen government in turn. So that is why the Houthi rebels, in spite of the heavy showers of battle tank or airstrikes onto the Houthi rebels, they are determined to take over or to control or to have the grip over the Marib city because of the oil fields. This is the reason. And once as the capital city Sana'a has been under the control of Houthi rebels, and if at all Marib also loses to Houthis, then it would be a major blow to the Yemen government and also for the Saudi Arabia, because it is the Saudi Arabia coalition forces which are supporting and backing the Yemen government. But if the Houthi rebels would be successful in taking over the Marib province, which is rich in oil fields, then it will be a major blow to the Yemen government, and which now the Yemen government is being supported by Saudi Arabia by its military since March 2015. And it was in March 2015 the capital of Sana'a, that is the capital city of Yemen, Sana'a, has been captured by the Houthi rebels in 2015. So look at the way slowly the Houthi rebels are trying to move forward and take the control over the ground of the battlefield, even just very close, that is 6 kilometers away from Marib city. And now we will look at from the map based. If we look at from 1962 onwards, and then now Yemen. So it is now, if you look at the political map, so this is the one which is now Yemen, which is in the Persian Gulf, and it is surrounded by Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, and also you have the Bab el Mandab. So these are from the geography map based we are focusing, and it borders Oman and then Saudi Arabia also. And if you look at the Yemen, today's Yemen has major port cities, that is Aden and then Al Udaida. So these are the major ports of Yemen. But again, focusing back to the 1962, so you had this Yemen Arab Republic, which is of this part. Fine. So apart from that, you had the Federation of Saudi Arabia, which is in the yellow one, and then the other one is that which is the Protectorate of Saudi Arabia. So this is the area which is the Protectorate of Saudi Arabia, and you had the Yemen Arab Republic and the Federation of Saudi Arabia. But today's you have, today's map, if you look at political map, if you look at, it is the Yemen which is now all joined together, or you have this which is almost, now it has increased a little bit, which Saudi Arabia has taken over, and then the other one is the entire now Protectorate of Saudi Arabia and Federation of Saudi Arabia are part of Yemen along with the Yemen Arab Republic. That is why we have seen the Yemen government is supported by the Saudi Arabia coalition government. So what are the main important point is that it is bordering the Red Sea, Gulf of Aden, and then Bab al-Mandab, and then the two major ports of Yemen are Aden and then Al Udaida. So these are the one which are very important for geography map based. And if you look at the other side of it, is now we'll focus at the today's political map of Yemen and how the today's Yemen is captured by Houthi rebels or Saudi-led coalition or Southern Transitional Council. So it has been divided into three, that is Houthi rebels and then Saudi-led coalition and then Southern Transitional Council, and also you have the other one which is Al-Qaeda. So this is Al-Qaeda in Arab Peninsula. This is the one which you need to focus, AQAP, that is Al-Qaeda in Arabian Peninsula. Please do understand, this is the one which you need to focus, because this is how you need to have the conceptual understanding about the rebels or the kind of terrorist organizations which are posing a threat to the Yemen government, and how Saudi Arabia is supporting the Yemen government, and then Iran is backing the Houthi rebels. And if you look at this yellow part, or kind of the yellow mixed with black, we have this part is now under the control of Houthi rebels. Look at this, almost very close to Marib. So you have the Marib province here. This is the one, Marib province, and they have come very close to Marib, just 6 kilometers away. And you have this one, this color, which is of light gray, Saudi-led coalition. So this one, Saudi-led coalition. And you have the darker one is the one which is Southern Transitional Council. So there is a council which is in the Gulf of Aden, which is the south of Yemen, which is now controlled by Southern Transitional Council, and to the east of Yemen, which is Saudi-led, and here you have the population is very sparsely or very less, and you have these dotted lines which are controlled by Al-Qaeda. So it is Al-Qaeda in Arabian Peninsula. So this is very important in regards to understanding that who has control over Yemen as of now, whether it is Yemen government or the Houthi rebels, Saudi-led coalition, Southern Transitional Council, or Al-Qaeda in Arabian Peninsula. So as we know that the main importance or the strategically or geopolitically very important for Houthi rebels to target or to have control over the Marib city is because of Marib province is oil rich. It is oil rich and it is geopolitically very strategic for Houthi rebels to take over. But this is happening in spite of, or it is despite of having a lot of loss to the or heavy casualties are taking place, but still Houthi rebels are determined to advance to Marib city because it is oil rich. And now we will focus that because of all these casualties, there is an humanitarian crisis and the city would fall under humanitarian disaster because there are many civilians which are being displaced and they are seeking refuge in the areas, and there are 140 camps which have been brought in the surrounding desert to provide basic shelter to the refugees who are 2 million people who had been, or 2 million civilians who have been displaced and then they're seeking refuge. And for that, around 140 camps have been come up in the surrounding desert of Marib city or Marib province. And the observers or the experts say that Houthis are intent on capturing the Marib city so that they would gain an advance leverage before entering into any negotiations with the Yemen government. And not only having any negotiations with the Yemen government, the Houthi rebels are determined to capture the Marib city, but there is a push from the US also to review the peace talks between the Yemen government and the Houthi rebels. So there is certainly an humanitarian crisis which is in the offing because of the heavy casualties wherein the Houthi rebels are determined to take over or to capture the Marib city because it is a oil rich. And now we will focus at the another one which is in regards to the cyber security norms. And now this keyword is being brought in by the RBI so that it would have the cyber security norms for the payment services. So this is the one which we need to focus from economy perspective, how the RBI is now looking forward to issue the cyber security norms for whom? For the PSPs, that is payment service providers. So the RBI has decided that it will soon issue the cyber security norms to the payment service providers, and these are the two keywords. And this cyber security norms have been already issued by the RBI in the past or recent past for the banks and for the NBFCs. So you have which the RBI has already issued the cyber security norms, which are cyber hygiene norms for the banks and the non-banking financial companies, that is NBFCs, which it has been done already. And now very soon the RBI will also issue the cyber security norms to the third one, that is payment service providers. So please do understand the concept here that the RBI has already issued the cyber security norms to the banks and the non-banking financial companies, and now it will be, or it is now ready to issue to the third one, that is the payment service providers. Please do understand. So now we will look at why it will soon issue the cyber security norms to the payment service providers, because there were series of data breaches, which were faced by the operators such as MobiKwik and JustPay. And because of this, now the RBI has decided that it will issue the cyber security norms for not only banks, not only for NBFCs, but also for the PSPs, that is payment service providers. So I hope you have understood the importance of the RBI issued earlier to the banks and non-BFCs, and now it has decided to issue it to the PSPs because there was series of data breaches which were faced by the operators such as MobiKwik and JustPay. So this is the analysis why we need to focus that the reason why the RBI is now issuing the cyber security norms for the payment service providers. And now we will look at what will be the challenges or what are the challenges now in regards to the digital transactions or the cyber security or the data breaches which are being taken up. And if you look at in the next decade or over the next decade, there would be a critical challenge for the regulators, that is such as RBI, so that there would be speed up the absorptions of the financial technology without undermining the financial system, that is financial system integrity and stability. So they have to keep on speeding up the absorption, that is the RBI has to keep on speeding up the absorption of financial technology. Here, while they are speeding up the financial technology, they should not undermine the financial system's integrity and stability. So, when they are speeding up, there is a challenge that there could be a possibility that there would be a critics against the regulator, that is RBI, that there is undermining of the financial system's integrity and stability. So this is the key phrase. Undermining the financial system's integrity and stability would be the biggest challenge, critical challenge for the regulators, that is here in this case RBI, to speed up the absorptions of tech. And the minimum standards set up by the regulators for the regulated entities are needed. And here if you look at, the regulators have gone ahead, that is RBI has gone ahead with setting up of regulated entities or minimum standards have been set up. But these minimum standards which have been set up, they will never be enough. So that this is the challenge. The minimum standards which are being set up by the regulators for the regulated entities are not enough. So that this will be the another challenge which the regulator has to face in near future. And the another challenge or the third challenge is in India, or the payment systems in India are not too many, that is very less. Not only the payment systems in India, but the number of players in the entire digital system, they are also limited. So the payment systems and the number of players are also very limited and they are very less in India. So that is the biggest challenge. And now we'll focus at what are the measures for the regulator to take up. That is, the institutions has to go ahead with or will have to do more with the minimum standards. So we have looked at that. What is the biggest challenge is that the regulators are going ahead with the minimum standards. So as that is the challenge, that is the regulators going ahead with the going ahead with the minimum standards. What is very important is they have to go ahead with doing more than what they are doing now with the minimum standards. The regulators have to do more. That is the measures. The measure is to do more than the minimum standards, and that minimum standards have to deal with any kind of security threats. So what is the measure is that because of the digitalization is increasing in India and there are various digital transactions which are taking place, so the regulators or the institutions such as RBI has to do more than the minimum standards which are being taken up by the regulators right now, so that they can restrict any kind of cyber security threats. And the second measure is individuals also should be alert. The keyword is individuals also, or the individual users also should be alert, because there is no alternative whenever there is a kind of risk which is taking place in the digital transaction. So along with the regulators, please do understand here, who have to be responsible is not only regulators but also the individual users. So it is the regulator, that is the RBI, and along with the RBI, that is the regulator, the individual user, that is the one who is transacting the digital, or the digital transaction being taken up by the individual, should also be responsible, and they should be alert, because there is no alternative once the risk takes place in the digital transaction. And there is another corporation in India which has laid the framework for the even distribution of share of the third party app providers in the UPI system, that is Unified Payments Interface System. That is, you have the NPCI, that is National Payments Corporation of India, which is a gateway in the digital transaction, has laid the framework that there should be even distribution of share of the third party app providers in the UPI system. So we have various keywords also here, that is NPCI, UPI, the individual users, the regulators, that is the institutions, regulators, should all be together in a coordinated effort so that we can have measures to handle the challenges. So look at this. We have taken exclusively from mains perspective that how the cyber security norms for banks, NBFCs and PSPs have been issued by the regulators, that is RBI, is helping the any kind of frauds or the data breaches. But not only that we have looked at the challenges, various challenges which are very crucial and critical for mains perspective, and we have looked at various measures which the regulators, individual users, and also measures taken up by the gateway in the digital transaction, that is National Payments Corporation of India, especially when the payments take place through the UPI system, that is Unified Payment System. So I hope this session was informative, knowledgeable, and very critical information being provided for the mains examination, both from international relations and economy perspective, and in regards to the kind of the help provided by the US and Russia to India to handle the second wave. So I hope this was an very informative, knowledgeable, both for prelims as well as mains perspective. So I would say a very big thank you to all. Good luck to you all. And then do maintain consistency, stick to your schedule, and take care of your physical health and mental health. And do not forget to like the video, share the video, and subscribe the AKS IAS Academy English Medium YouTube channel, and also have access to the website and Telegram link of AKS IAS Academy. And then I would say that see you again tomorrow with the daily news analysis at AKS IAS Academy, that is Advanced Knowledge System. Till then, thank you, goodbye, and then take care.